I just want to emphasize the degree to which we are in serious times, and this is a really serious job. This is not entertainment. This is not a reality show. This is a contest for the presidency of the United States.
And the reality was President Obama showed up for what was supposed to be a press briefing on the economy, but just couldn't resist turning it political, taking a question and going after Donald Trump as the presumptive Republican nominee. Now, Mr. Obama may disparage Donald Trump and talk about his reality shows, but the reality is the Republicans have a nominee and the Democrats have an incumbent president who seems to be interested in using the White House as a bully pulpit, not so much for public policy, but to continue politics. At any rate, that's my assessment, and here to offer their points of view and their analysis, a pair of journalists from Washington. First, from The Hill, and that is thehill.com, the great publication on Capitol Hill, Niall Stanage. He's the associate editor of that publication, joining us via Skype from Washington. And from Newsmax Washington, the White House correspondent for National Journal, SV Date. So, Shirish, first to you. You know, I can pull back the curtain, and I know politics. And when the news is bad, like the economy, you turn around and go on the attack. I didn't hear a lot of stuff about the economy, but I sure heard a lot from the president going after Donald Trump. Did he turn the economic briefing into a political presentation today?
I don't know if people pay attention to the president when he talks about the economy, especially now in his last term, but they sure listen to him when he talks about Donald Trump now, don't they? So, look, I mean, he wants to get a Democrat elected, whether it's Hillary Clinton in all probability or somehow Bernie Sanders. Doesn't matter as much as a Democrat wins. And, you know, I think they're a little pleased that it's Donald Trump and not, I don't know, John Kasich or Chris Christie or Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush or somebody like that. So I think you're going to see a lot more of this in the next 6 months.
Yeah, well, I'm just old enough to remember how we heard in the Carter White House how pleased they were that there was a guy named Reagan from California who was going to be the Republican nominee in 1980. Now let me turn to you. Was there anything today economically the president could crow about?
Well, I mean, the president makes the broad argument that obviously the nation is in a better place than it was when he took office, when they were in the midst of a massive financial recession and its aftermath. You know, unemployment is now at 5%. I mean, obviously everyone would prefer unemployment to be lower than that. But yeah, the idea I think that the president doesn't have an economic case to make, I don't think is empirically true.
Well, I will tell you, and of course, yes, I am a partisan. I'm here as a commentator, not as a journalist, but I'll tell you, when you change the score and you take people out of the unemployment equation to make it an artificial number of 5%, sure, you can do that Cook County window dressing, but the American people know that the misery index is sky high. Now back to politics, which some would call misery. Earlier today on CBS This Morning, Republican pollster and strategist Frank Luntz made an appearance. He said if the infighting continues within the Republican Party, it could cost the GOP the Senate and perhaps even the House. Take a listen.
You can't have that fight. If you have that fight, then the Republicans are in trouble. If they end up not working together, I can promise you not just a Democratic president, but a Democratic Senate, and I'll say it here this morning, that if they continue to argue, if they continue to fight, you could even see a Democratic House.
Now back to you, since the publication is The Hill. How happy are Democrats on The Hill that Paul Ryan went on CNN and said he just wasn't ready to endorse the presumptive Republican nominee?
I think they are pretty happy about that. I think that Democrats, obviously, as any political party, would be happy to see their opponents divided or their opponents having those divisions exposed or perhaps deepened in public. So when Speaker Ryan came and said what he did say, obviously that gladdens the hearts by its very nature of anyone who wants to not see the Republican nominee elected in November.
SV, what are you hearing around the White House? Are the Democrats, I guess there's about a 5-seat deficit. Do they really feel more and more confident they'll retake the Senate, Shirish?
I think before any of the Republican primaries started, they felt pretty okay about their chances in the Senate. They feel more than okay now heading into the general election with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee. And I just want to point out, however, just a moment ago, that you did compare two-term Governor Reagan plus all his years of thinking about politics to Donald Trump. So just leave that there.
And your point being?
My point being that I think that Ronald Reagan was a talented politician as well as a conservative thinker for many years.
Yeah, it just
thought
that most
about public policy.
And you and I are of a certain age, and we remember the alphabet networks telling us about the fact that he was an actor and it was bedtime for Bonzo, and then mentioned parenthetically all the accomplishments that we talk about Reagan on this side of history. So perhaps we see it through different lenses, but that makes for a very interesting conversation. Hey, before we go, guys, that tweet from Trump on Cinco de Mayo, with his taco bowl and the words, "I love Hispanics." Is that outreach going to be effective? Niall, first to you. About 30 seconds.
The professional part of me thinks not, but your viewers who hear my accent will know I'm Irish, and the number of times I've seen Irish people be impressed by a politician with a sprig of shamrock in his lapel gives me pause for thought when I say Trump's tweet isn't going to work.
Well, we have the big day, St. Patrick's Day. I remember during my days in Congress. SV, what about the outreach? You get the last word, 15 seconds.
Look, he dropped the definite article "the," right? At least it wasn't the Hispanics, it was Hispanics. So that's a step in the right direction.
And we even got a grammar lesson. We may differ a bit on history, but SV Date, we appreciate it. And Niall Stanage from the Hill. Gentlemen, good give and take, and we very much appreciate your perspectives. Well, you heard what the esteemed journalist had to say to this controversial commentator. What do you think? You see the ways right there on the screen to reach out to me and let me know. We're back with more after this.